Hello, and thank you so much for coming. First of all, we need to give a huge thanks to Spotlight and Filmmakers for making this event possible. Just give them a huge round of applause. You have no idea how much work they put into this event. Thank you very, very much. We also want to thank Mubi, who also made this event possible today by getting Coralie here for us. So thank you, and for getting us this film. And of course, to the European Film Academy, we are here today because of them. They recently announced the creation of a new chapter for casting directors within the Academy, and the creation of a European Casting Director Award, which will debut in Berlin in January. A moment we've been waiting for a very, very long time. So congratulations to all of you. And without any further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Fatih Abay from the European Film Academy.
Yes, hello. Also, welcome from my side. Apologies also that our CEO and director, Matthijs Wouterknol, is not here. He's kind of stuck in EFM traffic. So I'm happy actually to present also, again, just an introduction on the new development, what is happening now at the European Film Academy. I'm also very happy for this collaboration with Spotlight, Filmmakers, and ICDA, especially also on this film and panel on Coralie's film, because it's one of the films which really highlight diversity and inclusion last year. And it won also, it was nominated several in various categories at our awards in Lucerne in December 2024. And won actually 2 Excellence Awards in cinematography and visual effects. And now we are in a big transition year actually, because our awards will happening the first time next year in 2026 in January in Berlin, as just Lana indicated. And with this transition, we will now transform the Excellence Awards into chapters. As Lana said, it was really a discussion of the last 4 years to really kind of establish a European Casting Director Award at the European Film Academy within the European Film Awards, and now it's happening, and I'm really happy to announce it here, and we are looking forward to, and we are welcoming, hopefully, all you to celebrate with us together. Thank you very much.
And now I'll introduce our moderator, Marta Balaga. She's a film journalist based in Finland and Poland. She is a member of the Finnish Critics Association, a member of the European Film Academy, and she's here covering the Berlinale with Variety. And I'll let her introduce our esteemed panelists.
Thank you so much. How are you today? Happy Valentine's Day. I just realized that. I guess, Coralie, you are our Valentine's today, so thank you for that so much.
Thank you.
And Lana, we already introduced you to a certain extent, because today everybody's introducing other people. That's how we do it. We like to mix things up. But I just want to add that apart from being the president of the International Casting Director Association, and you were invited to join after Paranoid Park, which is an incredible film, you are also a US-based casting director, and you got your start working in London, so very international. And I've been told you know so many languages. Should we try later on? I'm going to test you on that. And then Coralie Fargeat. I'm so happy to see you here. I have to say that I was there when the film was shown for the very first time, and this was quite a screening. I don't think anybody survived it, but I guess that's what you want. And before you also made Revenge, and now you're Oscar-nominated writer-director. Congrats, and thank you so, so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
And last but absolutely not least is Marina Wijn, casting director and also a member of the International Casting Directors Association and European Film Academy. And you're also the founder of the Dutch Casting Society. So I think you're going to tell us everything we need to know about casting. And I want to tease a project, your latest project, Our Girls, will be out in the spring. And it's made by award-winning director Mike Fendim. So we're going to be looking forward to see that. Thank you for joining us. And I have to say that I write about film all the time, but I don't really write or talk about casting that much, which is a shame. And I guess this is what we're going to change today. This is why you're here. And I would love to talk about some issues, about some things that we like and maybe we would like to see change, but also about some casting choices that are exciting. And I would love to start with you, Coralie, because with Demi, for example, in this film, and she's looking at us right now, so I just have to mention her name, it was one of those things when nobody expected her to make a film like that, and after seeing the film, you just couldn't imagine anybody else. Was it difficult to find her, and was it difficult to convince her?
So for this film, the casting has been a very long process, and I knew from the start when I was writing the film that it was going to be one of the most challenging parts of getting the film made, because I had a real ambition for the film. I knew, I'm also a producer on the film, and so I always write my stories with having in mind the way I will be able to make the film in a very practical way. And here it was a much more ambitious project than Revenge, and I knew I needed a budget that would be higher because I had so many, prosthetics that I wanted to do for real, and all the specificity of my direction, of my mise en scène, which takes a lot of time to film. So I knew that I wouldn't be able to finance the movie in France. I knew it would be, a budget that would be too high, with a story that was still very challenging. Movie, feminist body horror, it's not the thing that rely everyone, unfortunately.
We love it.
So I knew from the start when I was writing that I wanted for the movie to have in the lead hopefully an actress, who would represent the star, who would represent the iconic figure of the one that is worshipped, because she's looked at, the one that is loved because she exists in other people's eyes. And I knew that if I managed to have an actress who would represent in herself, this symbolical, idea, it would be so strong for the movie to have that. And also I knew that, there is a reality, the financial reality of a film, that if you're asking for a certain amount of budget, you need to have a casting that's gonna convince also the financier, who gonna, greenlight your film. So, but it was only my second feature film. So it was a very big challenge, to get there. But when I do a film, when I write, I love to think that everything is possible, because I think that's why I want to make films, because it takes you out of your real life and you can create things that can't happen in your real life. So I knew that I wanted, to really go for really try and make that, idea become true. So, we started the casting process. We did, I just had my partner producers, working title in the UK. I was co-producing the movie myself, but we didn't have any financing yet. So, but we knew that we needed to start the casting process so as to get the movie together in all its pieces. So we started by, sending the project to the first idea I had in mind, who was not me. Like for maybe, I'm trying to find the line, maybe for 6 months, something like that, every, actress we sent the project to said no. Like, it was a very scary project. It was a very untraditional project. It was also a project that, of course, was confronting, the actresses to probably their worst fear. So I knew that it was not going to be easy to find the right match, who would be ready to go into that. And while we were exploring the Elizabeth Sparkle part, I needed as well to start exploring options for Sue's, because, they are one, they go together, but it was a very jigsaw process, because until I had found who would be Elizabeth Sparkle, I couldn't totally know who would be able to do her other side, but I needed to go ahead on some ideas. Because, I wanted to have some sort of physical resemblance. I didn't want them to match exactly. That was not the first most important thing for me. But yes, I needed some kind of resemblance. So, if Elizabeth Sparkle was going to be blonde or brunette, it changed the whole thing of also who's going to be Sue. So we worked from there with a US casting director who helped gather ideas mostly for Sue, mostly with newcomers, because it could have been a part where it allowed for someone who, would be really arriving in the industry. And all this went together, but basically, at some point, we were kind of stuck because all my first ideas, had been declined, and we still didn't have any financing. We had some interest, but until we had the casting, no one would really step in. And that's the life of a film. Like, until it goes, everything is still so uncertain and can collapse immediately. You're working on air, like you're working on something that you're going to work for during almost a year, but that doesn't exist, that no one is committed to do yet. And to me, that part is the most important part of the process, because you have to believe in your film even when no one else does. I think it was maybe after 6 months, or 4 months, I don't exactly remember, because all this is very time consuming. You send to an actor, you wait for maybe 3 weeks, an answer, and then you send to another actor. And so all this kind of takes some time. And at some point I said, we need to do things differently, otherwise we're never gonna get there. So I kept researching ideas. I was working mainly with my producers to gather, ideas for Elizabeth Sparkle. And at some point I said, okay, we need to open more our field of research. We need to send to different actresses, who could be potentially interesting, and go a bit wider in the ideas, so we can have something that clicks. And during that time, we kept researching idea, and Demi was one of the ideas among different names, and I said it's a great idea, but I was really thinking at the time that because we had so many no's, with actors who were pretty, who had an image very strong, that I doubted she would be ready to go on something like that. But I said, okay, we have nothing to lose. Let's send the script and we'll see. Let's just not wait too long. So it was that moment where we opened the script more widely, going to different actresses at the same time. And when Demi received the script, she was one of the actresses who immediately clicked on the script. Like, she really loved it, and she immediately showed interest. So we met, and for me it was more about getting to know her, to really feel if she could be really willing to take the level of risk that the movie needed, because it's not, a name is just a name. What's going to matter, it's what you're going to film, it's the movie you're going to make. And if you start working with someone and you don't have the same vision of the film, or you're not prepared to do the same film, the collaboration is not going to work well. So I knew all the challenges, that the movie was going to require, and the movie was really a very specific vision, with the filmmaking, with the intensity, with the excess, everything that builds the visual world, the mental world, that has some kind of coherence with the story, the way I wanted to tell it. And obviously, Demi, she had never done those types of films. So it was for me really to explain her the way I was working, and exactly what the fact that the movie was so specific in its vision that she had to be really willing to work with that, so it was also explaining her the level of prosthetics that's gonna imply so much technical constraint, so many long hours in the chair, so much schedule that would be tricky because we had to shoot sometimes not in the chronological orders. And on the day, it can be very tiring, very challenging. And if you are not prepared for that, it can make the actors like, what are we doing, So for me, it was very important that she knew exactly the practical level of that shooting, what it was going to imply. And also a very important element was also the relationship to the nudity, because the nudity was a real tool for me to tell that stories, and each shot with nudity had a very strong meaning. It was meant to say something about the character, and it was building the story together with the performance. And it's the same for me. I wanted to be sure that she understood the meaning of it and was willing to perform with that important tool that had built the core of my script as well. And it was also, which is to me something that is very important to discuss up front, to explain her the conditions of our shooting, because we were not a huge Hollywood production. We had a budget which was, bigger than my first film, but we had so much to do for the film that the only way to do the film that you see today was to do it in a real indie way. I was shooting in France, so I could work with a more restricted crew, had a longer, shooting time, and be really able to express 100% what I had in mind to create, everything that you see on screen. But this implies that it was going not to be at all the type of shooting she had been used to, in her career, where she had worked on big budgets. And so it was like very totally different way of organizing that. So I needed also to share that with her. 100 days in France, in an indie way, we're going to have the minimum that we need, to be able to work, but there were not going to be all the Hollywood stuff, entourage, like hundreds of trailers, like, you know, some days we were shooting in the suburb of Paris in the toilets of the, you know, of the city hall with like no trailer with us. It was going for a more roots, you know, experience. And to me, all those elements, you know, were so important to be crystal clear for both of us in advance, that she understood what the movie was going to be made of, you know, which was not only the performance. Of course, the performance is the core, you know, of the film, but the performance really have to merge into the script writing, into the directing, which is so precise that if one doesn't go with another, the film wouldn't work. And all those preliminary conversations, you know, made me understand that she really wanted to make the film. She really loved the script, and I think she felt like it could be a very important movie. But it also made me understood that she was ready to jump in the film with the rules of the film, which is the most important, because if you do a mismarriage, you know, you can be happy because you have some actors that on the paper feels like a great choice, but if you don't want to make the same film with the same rules, it can very, you know, soon be a disaster on set. So I know that all those, you know, I needed to meet with her many times to be sure that we were going to build that, you know, that trust, that real understanding of what the film was going to be, and for me to transmit to her everything that the movie was going to require. And during that time, I also read her book. She offered me her book when we met, because I think she felt that it was also for me a great way to get to know her, and it's been the case, because I think it's really her book which make me see her in a total different way than the image that I have just by having seen her films. And I discovered someone, yes, who was at a time of her life, where she, I think, wanted to get back the narrative on her own life, you know, which wouldn't go through other people's eyes, but for what she wanted to build. And also discovered that during her whole career, she had navigated such a tough industry where she managed, you know, to make her way into very male-dominated industry. She had done very risky choices also. She had been quite avant-garde, you know, for many decisions that she told. And so, yes, I discovered someone who thinks out of the box, you know, who has this kind of rock and roll, you know, spirit that allows to jump into different projects. And so that's really, you know, this moment that decided me to feel that she was, you know, the right choice for the film. But it's been a real process, and to me, the time that you take for that process just straighten, give more strength to the collaboration that you're gonna have, you know, afterwards. So that's, you know, how it happened for Demi. And when I started, you know, to feel that Demi was gonna be the right choice for the film, I started, you know, working more on the Sue part, where I started to meet Margaret Qualley, among others. But that's been, yes, maybe that took, you know, it's a process that took us, I think, almost a year or eight months. And to me, that's fascinating about, yes, what it says about, I do believe that a movie is the meeting of, you know, a script, a director, and an actor who meet for the good reason at a certain time. I think Demi was ready at that moment of her life to tell the same story than the one I wanted to tell. Maybe 10 years before, she wouldn't have been ready, to tell that story. And then I think that's when the magic happened, when you cross paths into your life with, yes, people who want to create the same thing than you.
And can I ask a question? Yeah, of course. I was just thinking that those are such fearless performances.
You didn't work together, like, okay, was it just meetings, or you also worked on scenes?
So before I decided to choose her, it was just meetings, we first met in Paris. She was traveling to Paris, so that's where we first met. Then we did a few meetings on Zooms. Then we met again, I think it was maybe 6 meetings before we decided to work together. And then, of course, once we decided, to work together, we worked on the film, but, it was quite a short prep time because we couldn't, just on a very material basis, we couldn't bring her so much in advance in Paris, and much of the prosthetic process had to start even before she arrived. So when she arrived, we worked mainly on readings of the script, on rehearsal for the key scenes that were very technical, because to me, when you rehearse very precisely the technique, then the actor can be free on set to really be into the performance. But you don't have time on set to build everything, because all the technical things, for the makeup removal scene, for instance, it's a scene where there is no dialogue, and it's a sequence shot almost. And so if everything is not at the right level, you have to start all over again. So every little detail in terms of rhythm, in terms of framing, in terms of the type of makeup she's going to apply, has a huge importance about the way the scene is going to build. So this, for instance, is one I needed in advance to rehearse so much for the technical detail, like which shows very carefully, okay, which type of lipstick is she going to take first, and then second, and then how she's going to remove it, and which type of dress, and so all this was some kind of things for everything to be set in advance. So during the day, because I knew it was a very emotional scene, so all the technique was already out of our way. We knew, how it was going to be built, how precise all the gesture had to be, all the pacing, because everything was written in a very specific way. And this, when you rehearse in advance, then all that part is kind of out of your brain already. So on the day, she can really focus on just the emotional part of the performance. And for instance, for that, that scene is made of 3 beats, where she starts to do her makeup, then she sees something, that stops her, and then she do it again. And those 3 beats, I think we needed maybe, 15 takes of each, beat to arrive to the exact, precise tone, rhythm, pacing, emotion that was, the right one. And I remember the final one, which is the one when she really destroy everything.
No spoilers, no spoilers. I'm so jealous you're going to see it for the first time.
Oh, yes. This specific moment, I remember it was a very challenging moment, because, when you apply makeup, remove it, reapply makeup. It's just very tiring just for the skin, you know. And I remember she had, you know, she was tired. She said, I don't want to go again. And I told her, we're still not there yet. So we need, you know, there is some kind of violence that we haven't achieved, you know, that we haven't reached the final thing. And it was a tiring, challenging day. We all knew this scene was so important, so we were all stressed. And finally, she agreed to do that final take, the 15th one. And I think with the mix of, you know, tiredness, stress, but actors, you know, they say they don't want to do something, but sometimes they just want to get there. You know, there is something until the director is not happy, they won't be happy either, you know. And so finally she went for that final take, and I think that's where she found that moment where everything was, she let go everything, which gives that magical, you know, take that does the scene, you know. And if we didn't have had that take, the scene wouldn't have been, you know, at that intensity. So yeah, this is to me a very specific process to get to know how to push, you know, an actor to, you know, to get to the level of intensity you need. And sometimes it needs, yes, get out of your comfort zone, but always convey why it is important, you know, so the actor can understand why we're still not there. Because, and I think that was great with Demi, because sometimes we have a very different process of working. We work in a total different way, so that what was great, you know, to navigate through that together. But I think she always trusted, you know, the point of view of the director. You know, she always trusted that if I was really telling her that we need it, even if at first she said, I don't want to do it, or she was going for it. And I think to me that's why, you know, she's very smart and very instinctive, because she listens to the emotional parts of the project, you know. And the emotional part is also, you know, the person who wrote and directs, you know, who builds the movie with the performance. So yeah, that's what get us there. Exactly.
And speaking of directors and of casting directors, I would love to hear what it is that you think is important when working with the director. When it comes to communicating ideas, communicating your ideas also, what it is that you like or what it is that you value, for example, in a director, just to make sure that you can find this right person. Maybe we can start with you.
Oof, I think it depends on every project has its own, well, way to cast, because I think this is a total different project. And for me, casting is about, of course, about energy. And I heard you saying that you sent out scripts to different actors so before. So I think because Coralie is a writer-director, so I think as a casting director, it's very important to work with a writer-director and getting into her head and then come up with ideas. But it's different when you're casting an A-list actor or star from European films when you're just casting the best actor for the part. So what I hear you saying is, okay, I have an A-list actress, which was maybe not my first idea, and then she was writing probably for maybe 2 years on the script, or maybe even 4, I don't know, developing, and then you have the actress, and then, well, I was just wondering if you, once you knew it's going to be Demi on your film, did you develop more scenes knowing that she was playing your Elizabeth Sparkle?
So, no, that's the thing that was so important for that film. The script was really an obsessive work. As you say, I spent 2 years writing the script, but also because for that specific story and movie, it was built in such an intricate way where everything was building the vision. So it was really choices that I knew couldn't be changed, because everything has been developed so precisely for the world that I was building for the substance that I knew that it had to be this, otherwise it wouldn't work. And so that's all the more why it was important for me to be sure that the actor who would come on board wouldn't understand that and be ready to do exactly what the script was going to be. Because I knew that if I was starting to change things or do things differently, it's the whole script that is unbalanced. And that's the thing to me that I knew was the most difficult for that project, because I knew that there was no room for adjustment, you know, and that's why I needed to be sure that the actor I would work with would understand that, you know, because I think it's very different depending the project, you know. I think each project has its own process, and I think that's what I love in film more and more, is that for me there are no rules. There is not one process that you should do like this or do like that. It's finding the right process that is the good one for your movie and also for your way of working, because what can be great for one director doesn't work at all for another one. That's why I love to, not really follow the process that exists, but to trust my own and find a way to, communicate them the best possible. But it was mainly more than, taking some time with Demi to really explain her why it had to be done in a certain way and give her all the tools to make it work for her, to enter the skin of Elizabeth Sparkle the way it was written. And the way it was written goes also with the way it's going to be filmed. Because when I write, I really write, considering I don't write a lot of dialogues, it's everything else that builds a scene. In my films, locations, there are characters as well. The sound is a character as well. You know, the shots where there are no actors and just objects in macro, to me, they are characters as well. They build and tell the stories together with the lead performance. And so there was very specific, indication in the script. If you read the script, you see that it's very detailed and very close to what you see on screen. But of course, then for the actor, inside, that very specific vision, it's a very emotional way of feeding that, like of making the heart beat, of the scene. So that's why I knew that casting process was very important for me, because I knew that I wouldn't rewrite, that I wouldn't adjust, because for that project, it wouldn't have worked.
And just, if I may, because it's true that in this industry there are no rules, but there are ways to show your appreciation. And something beautiful happened in the room earlier on when you mentioned this new award. And finally, Academy Awards are going to also recognize casting for what it is in 2026. Do you think that it's very important for everybody who's been doing it for so long, and what does it mean? Why did it take so long?
Why did it take so long? That's a good question. As heads of department, casting directors, for a long time, were the only ones who had a main titles credit in the film who did not have an Oscar category or an award at the European Film Academy or at the BAFTAs or anything else. So it's been a long time coming that we have our own award. We are a predominantly female profession, although we do have some amazing male casting directors in our ranks. But the profession of casting director started mainly as the producer's secretary back in the day, at least in the US, and evolved over time into the role that it is today. And we've struggled for recognition for many, many years. So it's taken a long time for us to finally get this recognition, but I think everyone is really, really excited. It does mean a lot. I think there's now kind of a global movement with the BAFTAs and the Academy Award, and now the European Film Academy Award. I think things are changing, and I think with Coralie's film just bringing everything to the forefront about women and how we need to take a look at how society perceives us and what our roles are. I think it's always good that we take a look at how people are perceived and what kind of roles they can play. And, I think recognition kind of falls into that category as well. So maybe that's one aspect of it, I don't know. But we're definitely super excited. And
of course we are, finally,
yes.
Finally, yes. But what you just said, that the substance kind of talks about so many things we are dealing with, whether you're a casting agent, journalist, director. This idea about how women are being represented, it's so crucial. And yeah, what you just said about maybe that being also a factor in how people view casting directors and the job. When you're thinking about how women are portrayed also on the screen, do you think that now is a good time to show something else? I mean, this is what you did with this film. Do you think that we're going to see more examples of that, of those kind of roles and those kind of actors finally given a chance?
I mean, I hope so. I think the whole idea of the film is really to speak about yes, the place you have in society and the representation, because to me everything is linked. Like the thing that you see around, that you grow up with, the representation that you see, all this builds, I think, a natural, which is not natural, way of feeling what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do, what you're going to claim, what you don't think you should claim. And it has, I think, a massive influence about how you take your space in society, or rather how you often can't take that space in society. And from a very young age, I've been very, I think, conscious and shocked by how much boys and girls from a very young age are educated to take a different place in society. When I grew up, like girls, yes, they were more supposed to play with dolls and little cooking stuff, while the boys, they were allowed to go outside and run, be on their bikes, and be dirty, and all these things. To me, says so much about what we're naturally going to think that we are allowed to behave or not behave, and how loud we are, able to be. And I still think that most of the representations still portray, women in a place that is not as loud as men, that doesn't take the same space. It was the idea in the film when Harvey comes somewhere, he takes all the space, you know, literally, you know, he enters and like he eats the frame, you know, he's coming and he takes the space, and at the, I can't say for people who haven't seen the movie, but at the very end, the final stage of the character, when she wants to take her place on stage, people don't let her do that. And yes, I think, you know, when I was writing the movie, when we were trying to get the movie financed, I was hearing things like, you know, movies which have female leads don't do as much money as, you know, movie with male lead. Sad but true. And when I hear that, you know, it's I think it says so much still about the way our society is shaped. And you were talking about casting directors being historically the producer's secretary. To me, it also says a lot about how, yes, the jobs that were done by women were jobs where they could do that while being at home, taking care of the home, taking care of the kids. For editors, it was the same. You know, it was mostly a female job, one of the female job, because it was a position that allowed you to still take care of your family, be at home, take care of the home, because it's still the truth when you look at the figures. At me, I look at the numbers, you know. Things change in society, but the numbers, they don't lie, and they still show that there is a huge difference about, you know, who takes care of the home, of the family, of the kids, and it has a massive impact of how much you invest yourself outside, how much you know, spend time conquering the world. And all those jobs that were, where there were women at a time where it was mostly a male industry, was just because it was jobs that, you know, could be done while taking care of your family. And to me, yeah, this is something that has to shift, you know, that because I think that to be able to invest the world outside, you shouldn't be still the one who's has to take care of everything, you know, at home. It starts a lot with that, I think.
And just to point out, I was looking at the Gina Davis Institute for Gender Studies statistics. Women leads don't necessarily bring in less money than male leads. It all has to do with the marketing. That if they put as much money into the marketing as they do for the male leads, women bring in just as much, or if not more, than men on those big films.
This is super interesting, and yeah, I think like we can shape the world the way we want, but as you say, I think the will to rebalance things is not there yet, you know? My movie, for instance, you know, it's a feminist movie. It was, you know, financed by a studio. You know, they were the one who allowed us to do the film, so that was really great. But in the end, they didn't like the film. They decided not to release it. It's their right to not like the film. But for me, if you want to do something in the world, you know, you should release the movie even if you don't like it. A movie from a female, you know, director on female themes, you know, it doesn't exist. If you really want to say that, you know, those gender things matter to you, you just release those films, you know? So it still says a lot. I was reading, and I think it was Kirsten Stewart saying, like, most of the studios do feminism greenwashing the way we do, like, and, you know, they say that they produce a few movies directed by female, but in the end, it's not a real, you know, it's not a real willing, it's not a real gesture. And for me, what happened with my film, even, you know, I totally respect the fact that you can just not like a movie, and that's okay. But what it says about the things you can do to, you know, change things, to me, the willing is not there. You know, there is no real desire to do that yet. I think the fact that the movie was successful on an economical way, to me, it's the best gift that, you know, the movie can then bring to the industry, because then you have a example. Oh yes, a movie about women, you know, with female lead can gross money, and then it can help for other stories to be made, because then you have that example. And if you don't release those films, you know, you cannot create
let's
that.
see them. Let's see them, let's release them, let's make them, let's cast them. I'm very sorry because I think we're out of time, but you know, it's like bittersweet because your film is going to be shown. So this makes it a little bit better, even though I could talk to you for a very long time. So thank you so much, and thank you for giving us performances like that. And also thank you to all the casting directors who are in the room. We appreciate it as viewers, I assure you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this amazing room. It's amazing.